Welcome back to A Game of Fangs and Thorns. My name's Hannah, and this is my October reading wrap-up. So in the month of October I read 12 books, and most of them got either a 4 or a 5-star read, which we know is about average for me. So I have my bullet journal here with all my ratings, just to keep me on track. So I will try and get them in order of when I read them, but we know that doesn't always work. So first off, I read The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This got 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought the characters, while some of them were interchangeable, I really enjoyed the character of Avery, our main character, who is gifted an eccentric billionaire, dies leaving her almost his entire fortune, and she has to discover why and how. And I did really enjoy the reveal at the end of this, so much that I do have the sequel just ready to go. So 4 stars. I have heard this compared to Knives Out. I haven't seen Knives Out yet, but if it is anything like this, it will be one that will be a fun, laugh out loud time. Then I read The Red Scrolls of Magic by Cassandra Clare and Wesley Shue. This is the first in the Eldest Curses series within the wider Shadowhunters universe. This follows Magnus the Warlock and Alec Lightwood, who is a Shadowhunter, at the end of City of Fallen Angels when they go on their romantic trip to Europe, Paris specifically in this one, where it is discovered that a cult, the Crimson Hand, that Magnus founded as a bit of a joke over, well, it doesn't say, but it's over 100 years ago, I would say. He founded that as a joke, and now somebody has resurrected the Crimson Hand and is trying to frame Magnus for its resurrection. I gave this, again, 4 stars. Magnus is my favourite side character in the Shadowhunter world, so it's nice to see him have his own story. But I just think there's something missing from it. For it to be a 5-star, it was missing that sense of wonder, or there's just something about the other series that has, I don't think it's angst, because I do think this has a lot of angst, but it was something that was missing from this that is present in the likes of the Dark Artificers, the Last Hours, that kind. It's just something missing for me personally to give it a 5-star. Then I read Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and this got 5 stars. I absolutely adored this. By Talia Hibbert. This follows Chloe, who is chronically ill. She suffers from fibromyalgia, and after almost but not quite dying, she comes up with what she calls her Get a Life list, which has things on it including enjoy a drunken night out, ride a motorbike, go camping, have meaningless but thoroughly enjoyable sex, travel the world with nothing but hand luggage, and do something bad. So she enlists Red, who is her building's caretaker and a bit of a closet artist. She enlists him to help on what starts off as a bit of, not enemies to lovers, but just, we got off on the wrong foot, I don't particularly like you, to friends, to having to work together, to friends, to lovers, was very well done. I absolutely adored this, and wait until you meet Smudge the cat. He's so cute. But yeah, I gave this 5 stars, and hopefully going to be reading the next 2 fairly soon. Then I read Room by Emma Donoghue. This was running away. This was a 5-star read. I didn't know much going into it, and I think that's the way you are. I think that works best for this book because it is a heartbreaking story of kidnap, sexual abuse, confinement, but it is made lighter from the fact that it is told from Jack's perspective, and Jack is 5. So it is the story of their escape from this room, and I'm not really going to tell you much more about that. But it was very well done. There were elements where you know that Jack is a very intelligent young boy, but then you still realise that he is only 5, and his outlook on life, despite what he's been through, is very cheery, and you can understand where he's coming from for a lot of it. So I gave that a 5-star. Why did I wait so long to read it? Then I read We Free the Stars by Hafsa Faisal. This is the sequel to We Hunt the Flame, so I can't really talk too much about this one. But in We Hunt the Flame, we follow Zafira and Nasir. Nasir is the Crown Prince, who's also nicknamed the Prince of Death, and Zafira is the Huntress who is one of the only people who can venture in and out of this magic forest. I think it's called the Ars, to feed not only her family but to try and to feed the village as well. What her family don't need, she sells on to the village. But because obviously Zafira is a female, she's a woman, that is frowned upon, and if anyone outside of her family was to figure out what was going on, she would be killed, and the hunter's achievements would be wiped clean. They'd be written off. It's almost as if she didn't exist. So the king knows obviously of the hunter, but he obviously thinks she's male. But then I can't quite remember exactly what happens, but Zafira and Nasir end up on this hunt for his magic book to try and bring magic back, and they meet all sorts of people on their way, and this is the sequel to that. It does focus more heavily on the romance, but it is a solid conclusion and has a very interesting world with very real consequences for what happened in the first book. And I gave this 4 stars. Then we have And I Darken by Kirsten White. This got 4 stars, and is a gender-bent retelling of the Vlad the Impaler legend. We follow Lada, who is the daughter of Vladimir. It's not Dracula, is it? I think it might be Dracula. Vladimir Dracula. But yeah, and it is going to. I think this is going to be a villain origin story set in the time between Transylvania, that kind of area, and the Turk war that was going on at the same time. And it is a very interesting story, a little bit slow in parts, but it is a slow overall plot, so it felt like it was just slowing down to gather pace for the next one. So this got 4 stars, and I do have the others on the shelves ready to read at some point. Then I read A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This follows Kel, who is one of the last remaining travellers. He can travel between the 4 different Londons, and I thought this was it was a slow read, but it's a good introduction to the world and to the characters. This felt more of a character-driven story, or a character focus, than a plot focus, which was interesting, especially in my opinion, especially for a fantasy. But there is a lot going on in this, and I do quite like Lila. I'm not sure why people hate her yet, but I'm sure when I carry on with the series that will become clear. As this got 4 stars. Then it was the start of, then I started counting my reads towards Vampathon. So I read Burn Our Bodies Down by Rory Power, and I am not going to tell you anything about this book other than it kind of put me off sweet corn and peppers and peaches for a while. But this got 4 stars. I think I missed something at the end of this. The reveal explanation type thing was well done, but it lost me. So I don't know if it was a case of I read it too quick and I missed something, or I'm just not smart enough for this book. But it was very well done, very twisty turny, atmospheric, and I got a 4 star. I think Wild Eagles got 4 star as well. Then I read A Court of Mist and Fury, and this took far too long, but it got 4 stars. I think this one is more of a setup than the first book, because we obviously the first book is A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is a rough retelling of Beauty and the Beast, where Feyre is captured by Tamlin, who is a Fey, because Feyre killed a Fey in wolf clothing, and Tamlin believes that she can break his curse. This is obviously what happens after that, and it was very well. It was well done. It was just slow, and it felt like it was building up for a court of Wings and Ruin, which is just like, yeah. And so I think that is a solid introduction. World building was there. It just felt a little bit bogged down in the details, and the plot, the action wasn't moving quick enough for my tastes. But it did end on quite an interesting plot point that I am wanting and waiting to explore. Then I read Hexed by Julia Tufts. This is just your standard witch story following Jessie, who has just discovered that she has powers, and it is tied to her menstrual cycle, so trigger warning for blood. It is a form of blood magic in a sense, where that it is tied to the cycle, and it is that powers the magic until the witches grow strong enough that they don't need that start. That I can't think of the word. But yeah, and it is very high on the taking down the patriarchy, but it is done in a very good way. Jessie gets her own back on the men, but then realises that she's hurting the people around her by doing it the way she is, and then she does take the patriarchy down in her school in a very satisfying way that isn't performative, I would say, because it isn't just Jessie. So that is 4 stars for that one. Then we have Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. This is a zombie style story set in the just after the Confederate War, I would say, where black and Indian children are sent away to combat schools to learn how to kill the dead, or as they're called in this book, the Shamblers. And then, so there's that element of it. We follow Jane, who is obviously in her final year at Miss Preston's School for Combat, for Negro girls, and she is on her way to becoming an attendant, which is a bit like a chaperone for the wealthy white women. They are trained to protect the white women's virtue and their lives from men, and protecting their virtue, keeping them innocent, and obviously protecting them from the Shamblers. But something happens where Jane ends up discovering a conspiracy, and then she is sent away. Within that, we also have Catherine, who is another student of the school, but unlike Jane, Catherine can pass for white. She's described as being very fair, and Jane unfortunately uses that to her advantage to find out what is happening in this town that she's sent away to. So I gave this 4 stars. It was very well written, it was solid. I don't normally do horror scary books, so there's that. Then the last book I read this month, I actually finished it last night, so bang on for Halloween, was The Whitley Witches by Robin Jarvis. I gave this one 4 stars, but it did thoroughly freak me out. I just got a little bit lost towards the end, but that may have been me rather than the book because I was tired. But this follows orphans Ben and Janet, who are in a not very nice hostel at the start of the book, and their great aunt's friend adopts them and takes them and meets them in Whitby Station. Now, I love Whitby. It has a very gothic atmosphere, with it being like it's a seaside town with a ruined abbey with its all sorts of secrets and local legends, and then add to the fact that when Bram Stoker visited, he decided that Whitby was where Dracula was going to land. So I did enjoy that part of it because Whitby isn't that far away from me. So I did enjoy that element, and it was freaky, it was spooky, it was perfect for Halloween. I think it actually did scare me at some point, but I just I didn't love it. I think there was just some bits about the plot at the end that went a little bit haywire, and I didn't quite understand what was happening. But maybe that was me just looking too much into it. So a nice short wrap up for you guys there. So that's it for this video. If you want to chat in the comments, please feel free. Emoji of this video, let's do a ghost if you just want to let me know you were here. If you do want to comment and if you do want to start a conversation with me, perfectly fine. Let me know what you've read this month and what your best read was. So that's it for this video, and give it a like if you liked it, and hit that subscribe button if you want to see this and talk about these, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.